Shipbuilding is a huge, expensive, vastly complicated undertaking. Nowadays, they've got machinery to do all the heavy lifting, vans to sit in if it tips down, even toilets, for God's sake. In Victorian times, they had to do it all by hand. These men did the hard work. Navvies, so called because they built the navigation canals. They were a wandering army of itinerant labourers. 250,000 of them built the backbone of Victorian Britain, the roads, the canals, docks and sewers, and they built the railways. They lived in shanty towns on the job, on a ration of beer and meat, 2 pounds of meat and a gallon of beer a day. After work, they drank some more, and their job was to dig. So you think digging's easy? What about something like this? It's the size of your average back garden and about 4 metres deep. Imagine digging this by hand. Where on earth would you start? Actually, you start somewhere like this. Originally, this land would have been flat right across the top there, like that, and this whole V shape would have been filled up with earth and covered in little bushes and trees, rather like it is now. And then the navvies would have arrived and they'd have started digging down and down and down until finally they got to the level where the track had been dug to further down the line, and all they'd got to do that with was a shovel and a pick and a wheelbarrow and a couple of wooden planks. And if Rob's our 19th century navvy, how would he get all this earth from here right up to the top of the cart?
He would run it up the plank, do a barrow run. You've got 2 ropes there. One would be attached to Rob, the other would be attached to the barrow. And at the top there, you'd have a horse in those days, a well-trained horse to the job.
How much of this stuff would they have had to shift in a day?
Oh, believe it or not, 20 tons. Because they were being paid piecework, I mean, that's how they knew that they were moving 20 tons.
20 tons. How much do you reckon you've got in there, Rob?
1.5 hundredweight.
Do you reckon you could get that to the top?
Yeah, probably.
Go on, then.
He wasn't actually pushing the barrow, of course. There was a horse at the top that was taking the strain. He was steering it. But you've got to think about the slipperiness of the wet plank and all that sort of business. Very, very difficult.
Incredibly dangerous.
Very dangerous indeed. Very dangerous. If the horse took fright or suddenly refused to do what it was supposed to do, and the barrow would lose momentum, suddenly, you know, probably the barrow would go one side and the man would go the other. That was one of the many dangers attached to making a cutting. It was said that every mile of track claimed a life.
That was the price that was paid?
That was the price that was paid. Life was cheap. Yeah.
Shall I have a go?
Yeah.
Can you bring it back down?
Yeah.
Let me hold my coat. The irony was that because the barrow run was so dangerous, the bosses put in new machines to do the same job, but the guys hated them because they were on piece rate, and so they could earn much more money, cheers Rob, from doing it with the barrow. So they smashed the machines up and reverted to doing it this way.
Okay. Yeah, fill it then.
I've got to fill it first?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to do that. That'll do me. Right.
Yep. Right, go on then. All right.
I have to lean right back, presumably, otherwise my feet will slip when I get to the duckboard. Am I lined up all right?
Yeah.
Ah! It feels as though it's all going to tip back onto me. Because the extraordinary thing is, if I'd been doing this in Victorian times, I'd have been full of beer and meat. Oh, my legs come off the duckboard. Oops. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Yes! Done it! Done it! It's really satisfying. OK, so the tracks are down, the job's done. Well, no, actually. Navvy's queued up for the barrow run. No one wanted to pack the ballast. What's the ballast actually for?
You use your ballast to get good drainage on your track.
Yeah.
So your sleepers don't fill up with water. And obviously, the more ballast you've got, the more stable the track is. Obviously, when you drive a train over it, the track tends to move around, and if you've not got much ballast, then you end up with uneven track eventually.
It's not a very difficult job, is it?
By the time you've done, you're going to end up with it level between sleepers.
Yeah.
And you'll have shoveled a ton and a half of ballast.
Right.
Have a go.
My little pile here is just a mingy half a ton. This pile is 20 tons. Each navvy would have had to shift this every day. Digging it was a doddle, really, but packing it...
You've got to get it underneath the sleeper. You've got to pack it under as hard as you can, really. And then once you've filled void, that one's fairly stable. That's really hard work, isn't it, that thing?
After only 10 minutes of this, I'd had enough. I was going to say something like presenters are supposed to, but my mind's gone numb. I've only done half a sleeper. But however much your muscles screamed, the worst job of all on the railways was the one that took the most lives. The worst job was having to dig out tunnels. This tunnel is about half a mile long. It took hundreds of men to dig a tunnel like this. They worked in candlelight. 12-hour days were the norm. Accidents were common. A combination of naked flames and dynamite was often lethal.
There was one particular explosion on the Manchester to Sheffield stretch, and 50 men were killed and 500 injured.
So what happened if someone was injured?
What happened was, as like as not, you'd be carted to the mouth of the tunnel and put on an ordinary wagon with straw and just jolted along for probably 3 miles to the nearest road before ever you got anywhere near a hospital, such as they were in those days.
In 1840, in the Woodhead Tunnel in Cheshire, 32 men were killed, 140 seriously injured, 2 had fractured skulls, and 500 others suffered broken bones. It's hard to imagine, isn't it, what an explosion would have been like in a tunnel like this?
I don't think we can imagine it, Tony.
Well, we can't imagine it, but we can recreate it. We can't do the panic and the terror and the feeling of isolation, but we can recreate the explosion, although this being the 21st century, we've got a special effects man way over there, and we've got a second camera and loads of lighting. We've got ear defenders, fire extinguishers, electrician, the police have been informed. We've got the man from the Parks Authority keeping an eye on us all. In fact, we've got all the paraphernalia of a 21st century risk assessment form. Go! It is pretty terrifying, isn't it?
It's brilliant. I could feel it.